G'day, hi, and welcome. You start to see the days are getting a little bit shorter. But it is that time again. It is jam night. Need the key thing to start the vehicle. Go ahead, beat it. We're ready. Get the window up so it's not quite so loud when I'm making my video. So this is jam night number 8 or 9. So that's pretty good. All right, do that. Clean my dirty windshield. I gotta fix my friggin' some birds like crapped on my windshield. I really gotta wash this thing. My windshield wiper washer fluid's full. However, the little jets, I don't know if they're blocked or if the motor doesn't work anymore. Whatever it is. Either way, I got a dirty windshield. Backdash is fine. That one's always clean. Oh, hang on. 3, 2, 1. Hey! I scared my cousin. That's one. Yeah. Oh, I'll let this big guy go. No, it's hydro poles. Is that hydro poles? That's hydro poles. Let the minivan go. Go. Why would you have a light on the side of the vehicle? That's weird. Or is that just glowing? You got like lights on the side of it. That's weird. Yeah, it's like blinding me from back here. Maybe it's just a reflection. All right, so jam night with the mandolin tonight. Yeah, okay, got the mandolin. I'd hate to get all that way and forget the mandolin. It's going to be an interesting night, and what do we got here? That's 3. I scared the crap out of everybody with this thing. Oh yeah, I love it. It's evil, but I love it. Oh, bunch of people. There's like 8 people there. Man, tonight's like a freaking record here. Hang on, one more. Nobody out? Are you kidding me? How can it be nobody out? How can it be it's nice out now. That makes no sense. No sense whatsoever. But anyway. Some people just don't know how to have fun, right? So, yeah, here's what's going on. So, I got the mandolin, and I will be doing my usual thing of doing 3 songs or 15 minutes, whichever comes first. This one, I timed it out with 3 songs. The last song, I'm not sure what I'm going to play. I've got a couple of options. But it's going to be like, I'm going to try not to go over. I tried to practice it so I wouldn't go over the 15 minutes as much as possible, because I don't like to do that, I'm usually always short, so I'm pretty sure they'll cut me some slack. And plus, tonight, I think is going to be epic. I mean, epic with a capital E, epic. You know what I mean? Why is it going to be so epic, you ask? Well, that's a great question. That is a fantastic question, why it's going to be an epic night. Well, tonight, it's going to be epic, not only because I'm playing my mandolin, but because we're going to be singing songs about battleships. Yes! We are going to be singing a Sabaton song of the Bismarck and the Hood. Now, I added a little to the song that's not in the song. And, 3, 2, 1. Blakely. That's about 20 people there. One of the guys following me behind there, he's like a town. He's probably, what the hell is Reg always honking at him? And people are either going to think I'm really friendly, but no, it's not just like hitting the horn. So, it's like, do I just honk the horn because I like to honk at people, or is it because, I just like to hit the horn? I tell people it's because I'm really friendly. But if they really knew the dark secret that I just really like hitting the horn, would they still appreciate it? I don't know. I try not to judge, right? So anyway, I got 3 songs. The first song is, I'm going to do the epic song first, just because it's a very dramatic song. So what I did is I added a little bit of a storyline and context. Don't jump out in front of me, whatever you do, bird. Ew. The vulture chewing on a dead raccoon. That's gross. But anyway, it's a World War II history lesson is what it is. And it's from the band Sabaton. And the song is called Bismarck. If you haven't seen even if you're not into heavy metal, you will appreciate this song for just its historical context and relatively accurate, although there's not it's not a very long song. From a historical context, the video really kind of shows you what happened to a good degree. You know what I mean? Excellent song by Sabaton. I think it came out about 3 or 4 months ago, which is really cool for me because almost every song I know is over 10 years old. You know what I mean? Like, all the other songs are over 30 to 40, 50 years old. You know what I mean? It's really hard to find newer music that's really good. And whatever. Like if you can find something within 10 years that's not too bad to play, you're doing good, right? But I hate playing old songs all the time, but when you play newer songs, the problem is nobody knows them, right? Unless they're fans. Now, Sabaton, they do what I call historic metal, where what they do is they'll sing a song about an event in history. And when they do, it's usually followed up by a pretty epic video. Usually a lot of it is movie clips from action movies and stuff like that. They throw stuff together that way. But sometimes they do their own thing. Like the Bismarck one is not from a movie. I think they actually made this video themselves, and it's just absolutely, the CGI is good in it. Any ships in the fog always comes out well in CGI, right? But the artillery fire, deck gun fire, the booms are nice. Now, something I did with a Farewell to Nova Scotia on the Mandolin years ago, and it's to the date the best performance I've ever done live is Farewell to Nova Scotia with a thing that I wrote called Tale of Two Ships. And it's basically describing while there's like the mandolins I'm playing the mandolin in the background, it's more like a story rather than a song, and it kind of leads you up into Farewell to Nova Scotia. And it's about basically, colonial ships off the coast of Canada, blasting away at each other. Tall ships, with cannon fire and all that. And it tells the tale of the two ships going to battle, right? And it's pretty epic. And I remember I did it years ago, and every time I did it, the song always came out about 10, 12 minutes to do it all. So it was like, I'm only going to play you one song tonight. It's going to be really long, so buckle in, But people get so into it because of the theatrics. So I thought for the Sabaton song, why not add theatrics? Why not add the story of the Hood in there, the HMS Hood, getting sunk by one artillery shell that... the story of the Bismarck, a little bit of a World War II lesson for you, is Hitler had really only 4 battleships in his navy, and the pride of the fleet was the Bismarck. That was the one that kind of, although I thought the second boat ship in the series, the Trippins, however you say it, was the better ship because it had more light defense on it rather than just heavy defense, where the Bismarck really only had heavy it had like anti-aircraft guns and stuff like that, but it was kind of lacking in anti-aircraft guns because I guess they weren't really expecting to, tangle with aircraft that far out in the Atlantic Ocean. But, however, there were aircraft carriers, and basically the goal was to get the Bismarck around Greenland in the North Sea and get them to basically get into the open Atlantic where they'd be almost impossible to find, and they could wreak havoc on Allied shipping, 10, 15 miles. Oh, wait, here we go. And to Jeffy in 3, 2, 1. There they are. About time Jeff's outside. Still a bastard. But anyway, I talk about him every time. But anyway, if the Bismarck would have made it out into the open Atlantic, they could have really, really wreaked a lot of, in conjunction with the U-boats, they could have really done a lot of devastation. There wasn't really anything to compete with the Bismarck one-on-one. There was no way you were going to sink that boat one-on-one. It only had 8 guns, and like the Missouri had 9 guns, but I think the Missouri came along like in 1944. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, so there was very few battleships that could go toe-to-toe with the Bismarck. The Bismarck was a behemoth. It was a Leviathan. You know, it was big. The guns were bigger than. There's a reason why it only had 8 guns, because the guns were bigger. I mean, the shells were like 1,000 pounds. You know, it really set the standard for a battleship. And not only that, it was very well built. Like anything the Germans built, it was overcomplicated and but well built, which made them slow to build. And the ships that were going to be coming after the Bismarck that Hitler had planned were going to be like 20-gun mega behemoths. Like, I mean, these things were going to be dwarf the Bismarck. I mean, they would have been even bigger than the Yamamoto, which is still to this day the largest battleship or warship ever built, like size-wise, was the Yamamoto. And I think only rivaled by the Chinese destroyer that they have, I forget what, Gatsu or whatever it's called. Anyway, the thing is just massive anyway. But the Yamamoto was like big. 15 guns on that sucker. That's a big ship. That's a very big, terrifying ship. And then, the mighty Missouri and some of the other battleships, like I forget, what was the 10-gun battleship? The main magazine exploded on it. Whatever it was, I remember that one. That was like Vietnam era when it exploded, though. Like Missouri when it was in Desert Storm, right? That's a World War II battleship. But the thing is that Bismarck was different because Bismarck really didn't have any rivals. It had nothing to really compete with it. The best the British had was the HMS Hood, really, battlecruiser, in the area. So the HMS Hood was out on a routine patrol with the Prince Edward, light cruiser, and the Bismarck was out on patrol trying to race to the Atlantic, and 3, 2, 1 to the firefighters. There, I got them all. So I got everybody today. That's good. Good job with the horn. So anyway, it was the Prince. Oh, I'm forgetting the name. But anyway, there was a second ship with the Bismarck. They run into each other. Basically, the HMS Hood and the Bismarck run into each other, and I think the British warships made a bit of a tactical error at the time, because what they did was they had this idea of come at your opponent from far away with only the front turret deck guns. I understand the concept behind it was to keep the boat lined up so that it was harder to hit. So they would face the bow directly at their opponent, and then once they were within kind of like unmissable range, turn the ship to a full battleship broadside and, get the business done. But the idea was to get some hits from farther away to weaken their opponent and then go at them with the broadside. Where the Germans took a different stance on this battle, maybe not all the time, but on this one where it was full broadside right from the get-go, which worked to their advantage. And these big heavy shells, they tended to fly a little bit further. So about 12 miles out, they start shooting at each other. The Bismarck gets a bit of damage, but not really enough to put it out of commission, but to damage it bad enough that it was leaking fuel, which would shorten its range, and then, if it didn't get out to where it needed to be, time was of the essence. They were going to run out of fuel, and then they'd be sitting duck, right? And then you had some other damage that gave the boat a little bit of a wonky list to the, I believe, to the port side. So what ended up happening is it slowed the ship down, right? So the hood gets sunk when one of the hits that the Bismarck got was a shell went in through the deck. The deck of the hood was a little bit on the soft side, right? So what happens is one of these artillery shells goes right into about the center of the ship, right near the rear, one of the front magazine turrets or the rear magazine turret, and lights up the magazine, mainly basically causing a chain reaction, which then, you guessed it, blows the ship, the Kingdom Come, and busts it in half, and down goes the HMS Hood, with basically one successful shell hitting it. Which then, of course, vengeance, they sent everything of the Atlantic fleet. Everybody was on their tail. But what really this whole ordeal takes place on Bismarck's pretty much maiden voyage. For 8 days, people try to track it down and find it. I mean, the Atlantic, the Pacific is a bigger ocean, sure, but the Atlantic is freaking huge, right? It's bigger than any continent. And there's a lot of places, even something the size of a battleship, there's a lot of places to hide a battleship in that. But they basically played cat and mouse in the bad weather of the Atlantic with the fog. And although the Germans' radar wasn't quite as good as the British radar, their radar still couldn't, and sonar really couldn't detect as far as they would have liked. But what ended up happening is by chance, a patrolling PBY basically spots them, calls it in, and then everybody starts racing for them. Now, the closest things to them was a couple of British aircraft carriers with some Fairey Swordfishes on. I've had the luxury of sitting in a Fairey Swordfish when I used to work at the National Aviation Museum. Cloth wing biplane from the 1920s, 1930s era, torpedo bomber. Not much of a match as a World War II fighter, but as a torpedo bomber would probably more than get the job done. So they sent out these torpedo bombers on patrol, and they found two ships, which they believed was the Bismarck, but it actually happened to be other British ships. And basically, you had an incident where the British Fairey Swordfishes were attacking British shipping, not thinking they were the Bismarck. But because they were using a new type of magnetic torpedo, the torpedoes malfunctioned, or they didn't function properly. And even though they got a hit on one of their own ships, again, a case of friendly fire. I mean, there would be no way, like these airplanes didn't have any radios in them, right? So there'd be no way for them to know. They would just go by the silhouette, and you couldn't get in that close, because if you did and it was the enemy, you'd get shot down. So they got lucky and they didn't sink their own ship. But then what happened is, the next flight that went out, they didn't have enough new torpedoes, so they went with the old tried and true torpedoes that they had. These ones were basically detonate on impact, which they were older, less sophisticated, but they were more reliable. And then, of course, by that time, the Bismarck's position gets called in. Out goes the Fairey Swordfishes. The idea was to just weaken the ship so that they could take it on, because the light cruisers would not be able to stand in open ocean against the mighty battleship, Bismarck and the battle cruiser behind it, right? So the Fairey Swordfishes do their attacks on the Bismarck, and they score a couple of hits, but one pilot in particular is really the one that signed the death warrant for the Bismarck, the beginning of the end. So I always kind of, sometimes light over might just works, right? Never underestimate your opponent. So basically, a cloth wing biplane drops a torpedo that just happened to hit one of the rudders on the Bismarck, which not only made it slow down a lot, because the speed of the Bismarck was too fast for some of the cruisers. It's a big boat. It's got a lot of power, right? Oh, wow, look at this guy coming. Speaking of big power, here comes a tractor trailer with no trailer. And he's flying. Yeah. So what happens is the Bismarck is crippled, and it's trying to race for the Atlantic, but now it's like they know the jig's up, that they know the Royal Fleet, the Atlantic, allies in the Atlantic know exactly where they are, that they're going to home in. So they have to make a race for either to France or to Norway. I can't remember exactly which they chose to do, but they were going to go one of the two. And they knew one route was an almost impossibility, that they would just be running into Allied shipping the entire way. So what they did was they just they gave her hell, but there wasn't really much they could do because they couldn't, they couldn't maneuver, right? So they couldn't take evasive actions fast enough to outflank the cruisers coming for them, or the cloth-wing biplanes. Now, the other problem the Bismarck had was the deck guns it had was meant for fighter aircraft like Spitfires and whatever, going over 400 miles an hour. So the timing of their deck guns was too fast for the cloth-wing biplanes. In other words, they were shooting in front of the biplanes. They couldn't hit them. They kept shooting in front of them, which allowed the biplanes to get close enough to drop more torpedoes. And then, of course, the battle cruisers got there, and they just started pelting the Bismarck. They started hitting it on the 24th. 3 days later, on the 27th, it would finally sink and succumb to the torpedo damage, whatever. But that was a hell of a death of a it's a hell of a story, right? Now the terrifying part is this, and I thought Sabaton done a really nice job at saying this: that war knows no nation. This wasn't about promotion of war, but just an epic tale of a battleship dying. You know what I mean? But there was also the battlecruiser, the Hood. On the battlecruiser Hood, there was 1,400 people that died on that ship. Only 3 survived. Can you imagine that? Yeah, it's mind-blowing. And on the Bismarck, there was well over 2,000, and I think maybe 100 or so men survived. Could you imagine that? On the when they sunk the sister ship, the Tippets, Bismarck's sister ship, the Tippets in Norway, it was sitting, I believe, in a place called Norway Bay, I think was what it was called. And when what led to the rise of the Russian Spetsnaz was the guy that found it, the guy who created the Spetsnaz. It was his guys that found it, and then he called in the British Lancasters, everything. And there was 1,500 men kind of manning this thing. Basically, it was there was maintenance needed to be done. Like Hitler had it sent there to hide it. But they found it, and when they found it, it was just stuck in a bay, and parts of it are still at the bottom of this bay to this day. It's a tourist attraction, right? So basically the Bismarck at least made it into the open ocean. But the Tippets, I think, was like 2 days of just pounding the shit out of it with like 20,000-pound Grand Slam Lancaster bombs, literally 20,000-pound bombs. And that, I forget, happened a little bit after the sinking of the Bismarck. So that was Hitler's 2 major battleships, and newer battleships were not going to be built by the end of the war. It was just battleships took too long to build. What they should have done is diverted all their resources into the Type 21 U-boat. That would have gave them time to build more battleships. In a way, we're kind of glad that they didn't, right? Or we'd all be speaking German now. Nothing against my German brothers and sisters watching, but the era thing. But anyway, the thing is that it's a lot of death. You're talking over 3,500 people, just about 3,500 people that died in an 8-day span, plus all the other guys that were wounded on the other ships, duking it out. There's probably over 4,000 people that died in an 8-day span, really going after one ship. I think that's like, how do you even quantify that? You know what I mean? So is that not a tale worth telling? You'd have to have respect for anybody that had to go down in an iron beast with the hull. Just picture being in the boiler room of the Bismarck or the Hood when that sucker overturns and you're not getting out of there. You're in the bottom and you can hear the water rushing in down the hatches and the decks and everything like that. And it's like you can hear the hull starting to crush, the air being pushed out of the ship as it goes under the waves. Every second is like a couple of 100 feet under the waves. Like, you're dead. You know what I mean? Submariners, the same thing. You only pray that it implodes really fast and kills you right away, or that you get taken out by the artillery shell. My hunch is that most people on the Hood were probably killed instantly from the magazine explosions. Even if the blast didn't get them, just the concussion and air pressure going through the hatches would just incinerate people. It would liquefy you. Very, very terrifying. So that's the first song I'm singing tonight, with a very scary backdrop of where it happened, what happened, and whatever, to a Sabaton song. So I'm anticipating a very epic song tonight. So that's song number one. Song number two is it's still keeping with the maritime theme. It's a repeat. It's the second time I'll be singing this song. This year's kind of strange. I've been doing a lot of do-overs, but this will be one of the first songs I sang this year, or the second, I think, from the second jam night, only this time it'll be on the mandolin, and that is Nightwish's Nemo. Guys, it sounds epic on the mandolin, and the piano part, that beginning piano part, I've been kind of teasing people with it on my other channel, saying, do you recognize this theme? Nobody seems to have gotten it yet, but I wouldn't expect too many people to know it, but, unless they're Nightwish fans. Now, you're saying that's a chick song. That's a chick metal song. It is, but it's a maritime song about the folklore of Nemo, right? So, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. It's a little more upbeat than the Sabaton song, but the Sabaton song it's an upbeat song. It's very patriotic. It's glorious. You know what I mean? It's a glorious song, so it's not sad and depressing, but it's eerie. It's unsettling. You know what I mean? The Nemo song it's not an unsettling song, but it's a good song. It really rocks out on the mandolin. And then the third song, I've got two choices. I can epically do Sweet Child of Mine on it, which is a total different theme, and I know it's going to go over well. Or I can keep with the maritime theme and go for the worst hangover song you've ever heard in your life, and that is Spirit of the West's Home for a Rest. And that one comes out pretty good on the mandolin too. So, what to do, right? So, yeah, that's what I got lined up for tonight. I don't care if I'm the first guy up or the fifth guy up. I'm going to aim for spot number 3 if I can get it. It gets to the point when I get there, usually what happens, if it's Claire, she'll usually just throw me on the list that, whatever. So I'll put you on the list, don't worry about it. But she always puts me on, early. Same with Greg, they always put me on early. But I usually say, well, I'm usually going to be pretty hyper and rowdy. So, put me a little bit later so all the quiet people can go first. Because if not, you're really rowdy and everybody after you wants to dial it down. I think twice I've already heard that there was people that wouldn't go up after me because it's like, oh no, you see, it's too much of a party mode now. I was going to play some depressing songs. You know what I mean? The sad songs, For me, I'm going for epic tonight. I'm really going for epic. But I have a little bit of a hunch, or a little bit of a thing to deal with tonight. Because yesterday, something really, well, I'm glad it happened yesterday and not tonight. But I broke a string on the mandolin. Yes, I broke an E string. And I was like, crap. Now, luckily, I got another E string on it. But if you're a mandolin player, you know what I'm about to tell you. When you have to change strings on a mandolin, you're going to have a buzzing mandolin for the next 3 weeks. It's not too bad. It's only one string. But it did unsettle, like the string, the E, one of the high E's. It's still stretching a little bit. I played it a lot yesterday, so it shouldn't stretch too much. But my goal is to keep the darn thing in tune. I've been retuning it up all day today, and plus I played the crap out of it today to hopefully that it stretches so that it holds tuning perfectly. It only has to stay in tune for 3 songs, but it's still, once you're out there and trying to play, and if you have to retune your instrument in a bar without a proper tuner, it's almost impossible to do with talking and, people laughing and giggling and clunking glasses in the background, because it throws you off. You can't hear. It's very, very difficult to tune an instrument in a noisy bar. It doesn't even have to be that noisy. Just people talking is enough to. You can't quite hear the pitches perfectly, right? And I really want the mandolin dead dialed in tonight. So I got new string jitters to deal with on the mandolin. Not a big deal, but something that I just before I go in tonight, I want to make sure that everything's pretty good. But last week there was 150 people at least at that bar because of that showing. I don't think it's going to be as crazy tonight, but you never know. Past 3 weeks has been 50, 80 people, 150. That's the largest crowd I've been in front of in sorry. Oh man, that one was fresh. That's the largest crowd I've been in front of in a long, long time, in years probably. Don't get me wrong, I liked it. But last week I had my violin, and it was a little too noisy for the violin. So the songs, I got a lot of clapping and cheering, but it wasn't as epic as I want. So the acoustic violins are fine if it's like 30 people in the bar sitting there semi-quiet. You can pull it off, but with 150 people, you just can't get enough volume to the mic to be loud enough to do what you need to do, right? So unfortunately, my acoustic violins, I think I'm going to leave them at home for a while, because last week would have been really epic with a full volume violin. So that means the only violin I'm going to be taking out is probably going to be my electric violin. Problem with my electric violin is it's quite heavy, like it's I'm not complaining as, oh my god, it's heavy, so heavy. But it cramps you up. A heavy violin will cramp you up. I mean, this thing's pretty much like a board with strings on it, right? It's not that heavy, but it's heavy enough. Like, you wouldn't be able to play the thing for 3 hours without having a really stiff neck and stiff elbow. Where my lighter violins, you can, it's so much easier to throw around, so much lighter, it's a lot easier. So, the thing about that is, the electric violin will come out probably in a couple of weeks, but I don't want to just play instrumentals with the violin. I want to sing and play, and boy, have I got a song for you guys. The problem is I'm kind of torn what I want to do it on first. Depending on how many more jam nights I'm going to get. I mean, we're just going into August tomorrow. Today is July 31st at the making of this video. Which means, my God, at the end of the month, summer's pretty much over, it'll be into September. Now, I'm probably going to go to early October, mid-October, if I can swing it financially with these jam nights, and hopefully by then have a gig. I'm still working on that. Doing some cold calling tomorrow. It's a lot of turning over rocks, like I said, But the thing is I want to do Farewell to Nova Scotia on the violin live while singing and playing, and I've got a nice little. There's maybe 4. Let's see. There's your C, your G, your A minor, your E minor. That's your chord progression pretty much throughout the song. And, it's a little different in the chorus than it is in the verse. And I've got a few little themes that I can run into it. And guess what? You can play it and sing it pretty epically. But I need 3 songs, so I want to do that one. And I'm trying to think of another really cool song that I could play while singing on the violin. I will bring out the guitar again fairly soon. But I don't know, I'm really just, it's probably taken me, well, considering I got the mandolin just a little after Christmas, after I got my Christmas money, so that'll be, almost 8 months that I've had the mandolin, and I just hadn't really had time for it up until about 2 months ago to really kind of, twang away on the thing and get used to it again, because again, the last time I had a mandolin was, when did I sell my mandolin to my sister? Probably close to 4 years ago. I think they were waving at me. Always got to do these emergency waves, because in these small towns, if you don't wave at somebody and they think, what, he's too good to wave at me, then you can start a family feud that way. So you gotta, you gotta be proper country etiquette, right? So anyway, might be more like 5 years, because I think when I sold my mandolin to my sister, my mom was still alive. So my mom, it's just past 5 year anniversary since she's passed away. So yeah, so 5 years. So it's taken me about 2 months to really kind of remember where all the chords are, to kind of, get some lines. Oh, you got some nice tape hangers on that. It's funny how signal lights don't freaking work, though. Dude, you're going to get killed. Use your signal lights. I know it's a Harley, but you're not that cool. You'll still get killed. I'm a biker too, so yeah. I call it the bad behaviors, like, whatever. Ride safe and defensively, my friend. Anyway, what I was saying is, so 5 years off the mandolin, we'll say. But now I'm starting to find where everything is on the fingerboard again. This mandolin I really, really like. It's not perfect, but for the money, my God, it's gonna be a tricky one to replace. Now, the bridge on it was, I think, filed down or whatever. And when I change the strings, one thing I recommend, if you got a mandolin that doesn't buzz, make sure when you change the string, change them one at a time. Because as soon as you move the bridge, it takes a while for that bridge to kind of reform to the top of the mandolin. Same thing you get with a violin, and then you get buzzing. It won't take long the more you play it, the less buzzing you'll get. The bridge will settle, everything will settle, will be fine. But you'll get these little blurb buzzes once in a while until it does that, right? Now, it's not a big deal. This mandolin actually is pretty buzz-free for the most part. It's a really nice mandolin. But sometimes it'll do like these mandolin buzz blurbs on certain notes and whatever, where if you play just hard enough, you'll get a buzz, you'll get a blurb note off of it. But you got to really thrash on it quite a bit to do that. So that's what makes it a good mandolin. But a lot of that is just the tension settling itself. This is why I tend to not like changing strings on the violins or the mandolins very much. Number one, the violin strings are great. Like good violin strings are like insanely expensive. But for me anyway, they're good ones are like over $100, right? And but the thing is that with the mandolin, the strings they stretch and they settle in fairly quick in comparison. But it's a very bright instrument, right? So when you get new strings on there, you get a lot of buzzing, and if you have one new string on there and the rest are old, it offsets the tension because one string's constantly stretching while the other ones are fully stretched, right? And that can kind of play a little bit of havoc on the buzzing of your mandolin. Not too bad. It's not like, oh my God, this is horrible, I can't deal with it. No, it's not that. It's definitely not like that. It's still going to sound good. It's going to sound great. But you're going to notice it a little bit if you're really familiar with your instrument. Line of traffic by me. They must all be mad because they can't pass here. And it's like I'm doing the speed limit. I'm the only one in Quebec that does the speed limit. I swear to God. But that said, the setup. The big thing with the mandolins is when you set them up, right, get to know them, but get to know your string change regimes. I would recommend changing your strings. If, let's say you're not going to play a gig for a couple of days or a week or so, I would change them after that gig. Now, let's say it's going to be months before your next gig or weeks before your next gig. I would change them at least a week before the gig. Because then it gives the strings a chance to settle in. Don't worry, they're still going to sound fantastic, sharp, and great for months after. That's one thing I love about mandolin strings is even if you play a lot, you play that sucker all day, and the strings just don't seem to ever get dead sounding. You know what I mean? Whereas with guitars, I've had electric guitar strings go dead in 3 hours. Where it's just it sounds like you're playing on mud. So just is what it is. So my recommendation is, again, everybody's going to have a different regime on this for their string changes, but I would recommend change your strings after the gig. If you're a week to 2 weeks from your gig, that's fine. Change your strings. Play your mandolin so that your strings really settle in well. And when they settle in well, that's when you're going to get the cleanest sound, the cleanest picking. The notes are going to ring the best. You're going to get the least amount of buzzing. Now, mind you, this depends on your mandolin. If you got one of those $150 mandolins, they're going to buzz pretty much no matter what, unless it's a used one that you got a great deal on, like me, where I got this mandolin for brand new or used for $200, tax and all, 222 something, whatever. I'm so proud of myself for that because it's nice when you don't have to break the freaking bank to get a good instrument. That's why, like I say, try everything in the store. Sometimes you find a gem, and that's what happened with this. I just happened to have the money at the right time from Christmas, and you know, I couldn't pass up that opportunity. That thing, any mandolin player that's a professional mandolin player would definitely love to have that thing as a backup instrument. I can tell you, it's that good. Maybe not the best sounding one, but this one is clear. It's not boomy, it's not muddy, and when I listen to the GoPro Hero 7. And you know, like, I know it doesn't pick it up as good as it, you know, that I can hear it, and on stage, whatever. But it's not like my other mandolin, which was a little bit on the muddy side, a little overbearing. Now, mind you, it had a built-in pickup. But I remember there was a little while where that pickup wasn't working properly, and I had to do the same thing, play in front of a mic. And it wasn't the mic; it was the mandolin itself. Just was boomy. The high strings, the high E, wasn't quite as crisp as it could have been. It was a very buzzy mandolin. I did everything I could with the action, but even taking down the nut a bit and lowering the bridge the most I could, it needed more work than that. I never got around to it. I ended up getting rid of it. But this mandolin doesn't need anything. Like, it doesn't need anything. The only thing it needs is a pickup. So I can, well, okay, it needs that. So other than that, it doesn't need anything. So if I can, you know, somehow get enough money together for a mandolin pickup, I'm researching that now to get a good quality one. I don't want a cheap pickup in this one because it's not like I'm going to be getting rid of the things, you know, anytime soon, unless, like I say, unless another mandolin pops up that's just completely epic. But this will be a great backup mandolin unless I find one that's better than it, right? Upgrade. You always upgrade. And then, even if I upgrade, it's always nice to have a backup mandolin in case you break a string live or something. So I definitely want a pickup in this thing, right? That I can easily detach from it, and not only easily detach from it, but easily apply to other mandolins. So if this one goes a dud on me halfway through a song, I can finish up the song and, you know, switch to the other mandolin in between songs, and you know, have the thing up and running in under 2 minutes. You know what I mean? That's something I'm already starting to do my gig-like features where, for example, the tailpiece that you take off on the mandolins, it's a nice shiny piece. It looks great. It hides where the strings go on. I've already got that off of it because it's like, well, if I have to change a string live, it's just one less piece to lose off of it. I won't do that with every mandolin, but my live instruments, I take a more of a practical approach to them. For example, my live guitars, electric guitars, I tend to bypass, unsolder the volume and the tone buttons and just wire the pickups from the toggle switch right to the output jack. I do that quite a bit. Mainly do that because it's the least likely way to get a short in the guitar. And if you've ever had guitars shorting out on, in particular electric guitars, they short out on you on stage, and it's just like, it's a gremlin, stage gremlin. You just can't find it. So backup guitars, backup mandolins, backup acoustic guitars, it's a good idea, right? But the other thing I always do is leave the backs off my guitars too. So if something does short out, I can reach my finger in there and kind of just, you know, use my finger to tap a wire. And usually it's going to be, whenever you get shorts, it's always the same wire that shorts out on you, right? And usually you know what to do and you can tap it. I did this a couple of times live. Then, you know, you take it out and you resolder things and whatever. So a live guitar for me, that's what I call a gigging guitar, is set up differently than another guitar. I tend to like to have quick access to the electronics and a backup guitar. Almost every guitar I've done that, where I pull the back plates off. You could buy a brand new guitar, but it seems like sometimes when you get on stage, things just short out. A guitar that's never shorted out before you ever shorts out on stage. Why? It's stage gremlins. I talked about them before. Sometimes they're just really uncooperative. They're Murphy stage gremlins. That's their problem. That's their problem. But yeah, so little tips and tricks like that really go a long way. When you only have one instrument, like say you only have one acoustic guitar, one mandolin like me or whatever, you gotta kind of just prepare for string changes. The best $2 you're probably ever going to spend in music is a $2 string winder. Like a string winder, I tell you, it's saved my butt many a times. You know, do I make it? Woo! Just made it. Oh, little cop there. That was a close one. It just turned red as but I was already in the intersection when I got there. But I could get a warning, say, "Hey, sir, you know that light was yellow when you got there." I thought I was going to make it, but anyway, yeah. So, but anyway, keeping on. Now that I'm in Wakefield, so it's going to get a little bumpy there again. With a town with such high tax base, how are the roads so freaking bad around here? It makes no sense. But anyway, yeah. So I'm hoping it's going to be an epic night tonight. I really hope there's a lot of people out. Because I do enjoy this, but I really got to get myself a 3-hour gig. Now, my equipment, am I set up for a 3-hour gig with the mandolin? No. I would need a pickup for that. But I could probably do a couple of songs on the mandolin, like in the first set, if I had a 3-hour gig. Because, again, it's a nice instrument to bring out. But I've only got one real microphone, therefore, I can't really give the audience the full effect. So I can do that with the electric violin, which is good. I can bring that out, do a couple of songs with that, which I would. I think the Rasputin song is going to be dedicated to the violin. Why? It just comes out so cool on that. And I like the response I get when people see me singing and playing the violin. Like, the fact that you're singing heavy metal songs, originally disco song, on the violin, while singing and playing, it's like, it's epic. You know what I mean? It's epic. Like, nobody does that. You know what I mean? You got bluegrass people that do it. That's, whatever. But it's one of those things that you really don't see a lot of people doing that. It is hard to do. So if you can even do it half-assed well, people are impressed. If you do it really well, people are blown away. So my always try to improve. Always try to be a little bit better. Hey, they got some new pavement here. That's it. They got like at least 100 feet there of good road. Wow. That's nice. That's nice. Too bad they couldn't do the rest. 100 feet is a start, You got the rest of Quebec to do, but it's 100 feet. 100 feet of smooth road. It's kind of weird. You think something's wrong with your vehicle when it gets all smooth like that. It's like, oh, what's going on, Yeah, a Porsche 911. Yeah, so I don't know what else I could say other than, people out on the motorcycles. Like setting yourself up for a live setup with different instruments and stuff like that, it's a little bit tricky. My next acoustic is going to have to be a 12-string of some sort. I love playing the 12-string live because even if you break a string, unless you break two of the same string, what's nice about a 12-string is when you break a string, you're still playing your spare guitar already. You know what I mean? You just got to quickly pull that broken string out of the way. A lot of times it just flops out of the way anyway. And if you don't draw any attention to it, nobody notices. Yeah. But is what it is. A lot of traffic tonight. And the parking lot is... Why do people park like that? Guy. Who park like that? You get like 10 more people in here if you people parking the wrong way. People just don't know how to drive. They just don't know how to drive. I'm gonna end up at the dumpster again. Yeah, it looks like. Why do I always end up at the dumpster? I'm always at the dumpster. I'll let this guy not run into me. Try not to smack the minivan. You know what? I'm starting to like this dumpster anyway. I see them every week. Got some barriers, and dumpsters get lonely. I mean, dumpsters aren't bad people. The straightest parking job, but I don't think anybody here can park straight. Okay, Dodge Mini. Oh, that's a GM. Okay. Drone Studios. Okay, that's cool. I wonder what that's about. But anyway, I'm here. I'm going to check the mandolin for tuning really quick. How am I doing for time? Oh, wow. I better get my ass in gear. So, yeah, anyway, I'll let you know how it goes. And there we go.